Elon Musk's company SpaceX has successfully carried out the first ever fully private spacewalk. Captain and sponsor of the mission Polaris Dawn, billionaire aviator Jared Isaacman, came out of the ship Dragon, flying at an altitude of more than 700 kilometers above the surface of the Earth at a speed of over 25,000 kilometers per hour, and a few minutes later successfully returned back. Behind him in outer space, Sarah Gillis, the lead engineer of SpaceX, spent several minutes. Two other members of the all-private crew, Gillis' colleague Anna Menon and Isaacman's friend Scott Kid Poteet, remained inside the craft. However, they too were trapped in airless space, as Dragon has no airlock and had to open the hatch wide open to get out into space. Going outside the ship is considered the riskiest part of orbital flight and has been the lot of professional cosmonauts, astronauts of government space missions since Alexei Leonov's first spacewalk in 1965. Six-day mission Polaris Dawn launched 2 days ago, and the day before broke another record. Rose to the highest Earth orbit in the history of manned flights, more than 1,400 kilometers. Only the astronauts of the Apollo lunar missions have flown farther from Earth. The most famous of them, Neil Armstrong, the first to set foot on the moon 55 years ago, uttered the legendary phrase, "A small step for man, a giant leap for mankind." The same words described what happened today. NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins, who was called by SpaceX to comment on the live broadcast. He himself spent 168 days in orbit and 5 spacewalks. An amazing event not only for Polaris Dawn and SpaceX, but for all of humanity. "We are one small step closer to interplanetary existence," he said. The success of the Polaris Dawn mission will strengthen the leadership of Elon Musk's company in the space race, especially since its main competitor for U.S. space agency NASA contracts, aircraft manufacturing giant Boeing, has fallen on hard times. Back in 2014, NASA awarded multi-billion-dollar orders to SpaceX and Boeing to build spacecraft to replace Russia's Soyuz to carry astronauts to the orbital station. SpaceX made the Dragon. Boeing made the Starliner. Dragon has already taken 9 expeditions to the ISS. But Starliner for the first time launched with a crew only in June, and not quite successfully. Due to malfunctions, it was decided to return to Earth empty, and a couple of astronauts had to stay on the station for 8 months instead of 8 days. A competing Dragon will be sent after them, which is even more frustrating for Boeing. And in the coming days, space will be busier than ever. With 3 takenauts for members of the Polaris Dawn mission and 12 Russians and Americans on the ISS, as many as 19 people are in orbit for the first time in the history of space exploration.